wanted to do this quick little tutorial about how to check your new paint. I got a different type. I wanted to see how it compared to the others that I have. This one is a Liquitex Basic. Oh my goodness, look at that color. Okay, this is fluorescent blue. No kidding. All right, so first thing I do is I look at it as far as consistency by itself is concerned. This one is a little creamy, does not seem to run. Reminds me a lot of my Fine Touch. So what I'm going to do is, normally my Fine Touch, let's see if I can write this down for you. Fine Touch, okay, I can't do it upside down. I was going to do it upside down. Is 2 Floetrol to 0.8 color to 0.8 water. So since this one seems to be about that consistency, we're going to start just a little lower than this. I always start with the Floetrol being my base, so I always compare it to 2 Floetrol. It's just easier to calculate that way, because if you calculate by the color like this, it just gets to be a pain. So I calculate by Floetrol to start. All right, it does seem maybe a little more thin, so I'm definitely going to start with, what I will do is I'll put a 0.6 and look at it. So turn this on. I will turn it your way so you can see what I'm doing here. So since I'm making a smaller batch, I don't want to make a big one just in case it's not the right consistency. I don't want to mess with that. So put your cup on there, clean it out, zero it out, get your Floetrol out, or pouring medium, whichever you decide to use. There's a huge debate across the community if you use Floetrol, or oh my gosh, there's so many pouring mediums. People use glue, trying to think of what else is used. Because I don't use it, I can't think of it right now. But across the board, everybody has their own mix for what they want to thin it out with. So I use Floetrol. All right, here we go. We want to start with 2. This is going to be tricky doing this upside down. Okay, now my scale here, I tend to check it. You can see 1.6, 1.7. When I get close, I'll lift it up and put it back on, because sometimes at those smaller numbers, it gets a little funny. So it gives it a second to reset and check. And that way, when I'm first starting to do a brand new paint type, I want to make sure I get these measurements pretty darn exact. Okay, let's see here. That's 1.9. We're close. Just a little drip at a time, and then check it. See, this is why it bugs me sometimes. It'll drop down. Now it's, you know what, I'm going to leave it at that because it's getting tricky today. And that is exactly why I lift it up and put it back down. So now that we know we've got 2 in there, clear that out. So we're going to start with 0.6. Just a smidge in extra. Just because this is going to be specific, I need it to be super specific. Grab just a little bit out of there. There we go. All right. Now, so at this point, I mix it to see how it is with just it and the Floetrol. So when you mix, make sure you definitely scrape the sides as much as possible. Scrape down in the holes in the bottom. Scrape off your popsicle stick because it'll get stuck to it. It sucks it in. That's wood, you know. Okay, so that's pretty good to get an eyeball on it here. So this consistency, you can see, is really thick. It just sits right on top. Oh, I hope I have the right angle for this. Just sits right on top, barely drips. So what I like to have is what's called a disappearing mound, which means when you lift your stick up and goes across the top, you see just a little you see a little ridge, and then it sinks. So I'll show you what that is. So now that we have that to look at, we're going to clear this back out, and we're going to point, I'm going to write this down here, 0.6. Okay, color, water's next. Okay, now we will put in, we'll start with 0.6. And this is another reason to have just a little bottle that you can squirt just in case. It helps you control the flow of the water that you put in, because once you go over, you can't go back. So, oh, speaking of going over, okay, that's doing its flipping. All right, so mix it up again real good. As always, get the sides, get the bottom done really well. Scrape your stick, get it back in there. Okay, let's check this. Okay, this is darn close. It's not right, but this is mounding. I hope that shows. It will show that mound right there before it sinks in. This one's real slow right now, so it's not as thin as I would prefer it, because it'll show that mound and then it'll drip slowly back in. It'll disappear slowly. So that's, yeah, sure. I'll get this angle right one of these days. Okay, so because of that, I want just a little thinner, so I'm going to go up to 2. Clear that out. Real slow on this, because it's just 0.2. Okay, come on. That's what we're looking for. Okay, see, that's why you wait just a second before. Okay, so we are now on 0.8. Okay. All right, now, so make sure I get this right. This right here is a disappearing mound. It shows the mound, you see a trace, and then it just sinks in, just disappears back into the rest of the paint. And that is the consistency I like. All right. So now that we know that, we can write that down and scale it up from there. So there you go. That's how you mix a brand new, how you test a brand new paint. Or not paint, but a brand new brand of paint. If you get a new one, check the consistency first, see what it kind of looks like normally to anything else, and just start a little below and work your way up on both of them. So this tells me that this Liquitex here is actually a little bit thicker than Fine Touch, because I use less paint, actual color, than the fine touch. So, but the water and the Floetrol is the same. So there you go. Just work through it, find out what consistency you like, and you have to do that across the board, because you really do want to get the same consistency for everything for it to work the way you want it to. We'll get into if you want your base to be thicker or thinner, depending on what you want to do later. That's a totally different tutorial. But this one right here, I hope that works for you. Happy painting! Thought I would give this to you at the end of this video. I just got some new Master's Touch, and you can see it on the bottom here. I redid my chart because I have more types now. This is my mix. These are my mixes. Now I have Master's Touch, which is basically the same consistency apparently as this Liquitex Basics. It's a little thicker than Fine Touch, so you don't have to use as much, which is always better, that you don't use more paint. And there you have it.